You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5785, 2025. This week's Parsha is Parsha Beshalach. It's an exciting moment for the Jewish people. It's the moment of redemption. Pharaoh, after being cajoled and begged over and over again, let my people go. And after being struck with 10 really debilitating plagues causing massive destruction to the Egyptian people, finally, when the firstborns die, including his own firstborn, Pharaoh says, get out of here. And they push out the Jewish people. Vayihi Beshalach Pharaoh. Pasuk says, and it was when Pharaoh was sending out the Jewish people. And when we read this pasuk, we have to ask to ourselves, well, it's kind of funny. If let's say somebody has an experience where they're robbed at gunpoint, and the robber says, give me your money or your life. So would we say that the person gave his money to the robber? Or it's kind of unwilling. It's not really exactly being done with the person's desire. But the pasuk says that it was when Pharaoh sent out the Jewish people. He was coerced. He was forced. So is this called that he sent them out? I'd like to share with you a medrash, the first medrash on this week's parsha, and the medrash points out 3 different points in time where we see that either Pharaoh or Avimelech, kings, were forced to give up something that they wanted. Let's read this together. Pasuk in Mishlei, chapter 26, verse 3 says that if you have a horse and you want the horse to move, you need a shot. A shot is a stick to hit it with. And when it comes to a mule or a donkey, so you need reins. You have a bit inside of its mouth, you have the strings attached to it, you pull back on the reins in order to prevent it from going in a direction you don't want it to go. Says the Medrash, Shoit Lasus, Zeparo Harishain. When we speak about a stick that's used to strike a horse in order to get it to go in the direction you want it to go, this is a reference to the first Pharaoh. Pharaoh Harishain means the Pharaoh that we had all the way back in Bereshis, when Avram and Sarah came down to Egypt, and Pharaoh takes the beautiful woman, thinking that it's his sister. And what does Hashem do to prevent him from actually consummating the quote marriage? Pasuk tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave nigoim. He gave blemishes, and as the Meforshim explain, the blemishes and the physical discomfort that they had was in the private areas of that person, so that he would get the message that he couldn't be involved with another man's wife. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu smacks the horse in order to get Pharaoh, so to speak, to release Sarah Imenu. Matam Elemer Eishes Avram. So as a side point, the measure says, why is it referred to Sarah Imenu as the wife of Abraham? Because there was her zchus, her merit, her tzidkus, her righteousness, that caused her to be saved in a miraculous way. And there was also the righteousness of Avram himself. She was the wife of Avram. There were 2 people here who had a zchus, who had a merit that enabled them to be able to be freed. For HaKadosh Baruch Hu to actually intervene in nature. V'omer u'Avram heitiv ba'avura. And the end result was, this is an important point, although in the Medrash itself it seems to be not so relevant, it seems to be a side point, but I think it's very important for us to understand the parallels between what happened there with Sarah and Am Yisrael as a whole. Sarah Imenu, let's understand and recognize, Sarah was the beginning of Am Yisrael. She was the mother, the aim, so she contains within her all of the potential for what's going to happen in the future. Right? As we find, Maisa Avis Milabanim, that which happens to the forefathers, they are the root of who their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are. So we need to understand what happened to her and Avram, and how it reflects itself in what happens later to Am Yisrael. But the Medrash says that as a result of this challenge that they went through, Pharaoh perhaps felt like he had to apologize or to make good on the mistakes that he made, so he gave Avram and Sarah a tremendous amount of wealth. Tzoinu bakar, sheep, cattle, money, etc. Now, so that's the first one. The first case, it was Paro and Sarah. Umeseg lachamor, but there's a second instance, which is very interesting as well. And again, we need to watch what happens here, because we need to try to understand what's going on with our current Parsha, the Parsha of Am Yisrael, where Paro does not want to let them leave, but ultimately allows them to leave. Umeseg lachamor. There's a difference between using a stick to force an animal to go in the direction you'd like it to go, as opposed to using reins to hold it back. So the second thing that's described in the Pasuk in Mishlei is that a chamor, a donkey, you have a resen, you have a meseg, reins. Zeh Avimelech. This parallels what happens with Avimelech, right? Sarah Imenu in Bereshis. So she had two instances where she was abducted, first by Pharaoh, and by Avimelech. So what happens with Avimelech? It's a little bit of a different story. Amosai ki atzor atzar Hashem v'yakol rechen lebeis Avimelech. Hashem did not actually strike in a positive way, give some kind of blemishes on the body of Avimelech to prevent him from consummating a marriage with someone who is already married. But rather, Hashem was Otzar. He held back their ability to give birth. All of those who were in the proximity of Avimelech, the members of his household, there were women there who were either about to give birth or were already in the process of giving birth, but everything stopped. All of their ability to bring babies into the world was arrested. Right? There was a holding back. That was the symbol that Hashem gave to Avimelech in order to indicate that he's playing around with something that he shouldn't play around with. So Avimelech then went and he said about himself, he praised himself and he said, I did this with the simplicity of my heart. I didn't do anything wrong by taking her. Meaning he claimed, look, he told me that it's his sister, so I didn't know that it was his wife. I did nothing wrong. But Hashem says in response, I prevented you from sinning to me. It wasn't that you were such a tzaddik, you were such a righteous individual, you did everything right. I stopped you from sinning. And as I believe it's Avram Avinu himself says, that's the first thing that you ask when someone comes into this to your country. Who's this woman? It's the guy's wife. You're threatening the guy. What is this comparable to? Says the Medrash, to a donkey that a person was riding on. Now the donkey's walking along in the market, and there's a child, a baby, playing on the floor. And as the donkey gets to the baby, the donkey jumps over the baby, and nothing happens. The baby is safe. Everyone starts praising wow, what an amazing donkey. It's so intelligent, it doesn't want to cause any damage. Wow, it's just absolutely unbelievable. It's the guy who's sitting on the back of the donkey says to them, I promise you, if I hadn't pulled back on the reins, the donkey would have caused damage to that child. That's exactly what happened with Avimelech. People said, oh, he's such a good guy. He didn't do anything to cause damage to Sarah. He didn't actually marry her, consummate the marriage. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem says, hold your horses here a moment, literally. He wanted to, but I didn't let him. I was the rider on the donkey, preventing him. I'm the one who held him back. God says, Hashem does not allow the wicked one to fully perpetrate the wickedness he wants to perpetrate. That's why the pasuk says, in reference to Avimelech, the concept of the meseg, the reins that hold back. Okay, so we have these two people wanted to do something wrong. They didn't do it. One was struck, that was Pharaoh, and one was held back with the reins, that was Avimelech. And I want to point out, and we need to think about this as we think about Am Yisrael, the Jewish people in Egypt, and what was the whole idea? What were they there for? What was the purpose of this time that they spent there? What did Pharaoh gain from them? In order to understand that, we need to look at the parallels that the Medrash is drawing between the Jewish people, that's what we're about to see, and Sarah Imenu being taken by Pharaoh and taken by Avimelech. Why does the Torah even tell us the story? Why is it so important for us to know about this abduction? It's a very strange thing. And when we understand this, we can start to understand also what's going on even in our times, where unfortunately we've seen these abductions. We can understand in concept, what does it mean? What is the attempt? What does it signify? And what are we to learn from it? What is the idea between that? What is the idea behind the releasing of those who are abducted? What is the idea behind it? What does that teach us? What is supposed to be the end result of that? So the Medrash goes on to the third thing that's mentioned in the pasuk in Mishlei, and shows us how it parallels the Jewish people being released from Egypt. V'shevet legev ksilim. A stick, a shevet, it ends up in the laps. I don't know exactly how to translate the word legev, but the fools end up struck. A fool ends up being stricken. Right? A person who the parent walks in and says, if you don't listen to my instructions, you're going to end up alone in your room. You're going to be punished. You're going to be grounded for a week, whatever. The foolish child doesn't listen to the parents and ends up being punished. Who's that? That's Paro. Ze Paro, says the Medrash, V'hamitzrim, and Egyptians. When they experienced the plagues, which obviously did not come for their benefit, came for the Jewish people's benefit, but they were ready and willing to do something which they didn't want to do, which was to let the Jewish people out. Beshalach. As the pasuk says, that Pharaoh sent them out. So I want to first point out that just like with Avimelech, when he let them out, the Medrash doesn't say this, but I think the Medrash is implying this. Just like with Avimelech, when he let Sarah Imenu free and claimed, oh, I let them out, I let her out. So Pharaoh also, the pasuk says, he sent Beshalach Pharaoh, he sent out the Jewish people. But really, who is the one that sent them out? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who forced Pharaoh's hand, forced him to release the Jewish people. He sent them out. But really, it was because HaKadosh Baruch Hu struck him. He was a fool. He kept being obstinate in the face of all of the plagues. And he didn't stop. He didn't step back. Now there's a lot of beautiful things in this medrash. It's a very long medrash. I'm not going to read everything here. But I'd like to read to you one more part, just because it's so pretty, it's so beautiful. And sometimes you read a medrash, and the mashal, the analogy of the medrash, it's just so beautiful. Listen to this. Umeseg lachamor. In regards to the fact No, I'm sorry. U'mesagel Chamar is going back on the previous thing. Mishal Paro Lema Davar Daima. What is Pharaoh comparable to? What's the analogy that we can compare Paro to when it comes to the way that he was asking for punishment? He was asking for punishment. Hashem says, "Let them go." He says, "No," and he gets punished over and over again. It says a Medrash mashal. The mashal is like this: L'roya echad she'roya chazirim. There was one shepherd who was a shepherd not of sheep, but he was a shepherd of pigs. What a great mashal! Paro is the shepherd of pigs. Such a great one. So there was amongst these pigs, there was one single sheep. So the owner of the sheep said, "What are you doing with my sheep amongst your pig herd? Give me back my sheep." The owner of the pig herd says back, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any sheep of yours. This is my sheep." Amar Habal. So this guy was serious. The owner of the sheep wanted his sheep back. Amar Habal. He started to do some research and find out where this guy goes to bring his pigs in order to give them what to drink. He gathered intelligence, and he went to the place where this guy would bring his pigs to drink, and he closed up the wells, the source of the water. And he said, "Let my sheep go. Give me back my sheep." He said again, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any sheep of yours." So then it starts to get more serious. The owner of the sheep is like, "I got to find out where exactly he brings his animals to rest." So he went there and he destroyed all of the tents and the booths that they would make for the animals in order to have them protected from the elements. And he said, "Let my sheep out. Let me have back my sheep." He said again, "I don't have any sheep of yours." It's like, think about it, like, why is he so obstinate, the owner of the pigs? Like, let the sheep go out. So the owner of the sheep says, "I got to find out where exactly he shepherds his sheep, where he shepherds his pigs. Where does he bring them in order to give them pasture?" So he found out, and he went and he burned all of the area, all of the grass that they would go to eat, all the pigs. Again, he said, "Give me my sheep." He said, "I don't know what you're talking about." So he says, "I want to know where this guy's kid goes to school." And he kidnapped the child. And he said, "Give me my sheep." Finally he says, "Okay, here's your sheep." He gives in by makas b'chayres. It takes his firstborn son. He was continuing, and then I'm not sure exactly what this means. It sounds like he hid it by his son. So he got to the son, and the son's like, "Why are you still keeping me here? Let me go back to my father. You have your sheep now." So the owner of the sheep says, No, I'm not giving you back your son yet, because you still need to give me, as long as my sheep was in your possession, you got all of its gizos, you got all of the shearings from the sheep, you got all of the milk from the sheep, you got all of the benefits. I need you to pay me back. All that I lost as a result of it being in your possession, you need to give me back all the back pay. He starts screaming and saying, Hey, what do you mean you're going to charge me for all that stuff? I wish I shouldn't have given it back to you. So, why did he give it back? He had no choice. He would have killed his son. But in the end, once you admitted it, it's your problem. You admitted that this is his sheep, and now you got to pay for everything. That's the back pay. That's the back pay. Okay, so it's a cool mashal. It's kind of another level of understanding, or we could think a lot about what it teaches us. The pigs, the Egyptians are the pigs. They're the low-class human beings, let's say, idolaters, idol worshippers. And we understand pigs don't give out any gizais, right? Let's look at the contrast. Pigs don't have any shearings. They don't have any wool. So we understand that the pig farmer wants the sheep. He has benefits from it. What is it teaching us? This is what I think it's teaching us, and I think it's very powerful. Why does Paro abduct Sarah Imein? What is the Torah teaching us with the story? What is it? It's just like telling us a scary story. Like, why is the Torah telling us this story with Avimelech and Paro? And I think that what it's teaching us, the whole thing centers around the power of Am Yisrael, the future of Am Yisrael. Who is Am Yisrael? Who is Avram Avinu? He's the future of the world. He's the future leader of the world. Am Yisrael is meant to be the ones who teach the world about God. That's what Avram did. That's what Sarah did. When Paro abducts Sarah, when Avimelech abducts Sarah, what he's really doing is he's saying, I want the power. Sarah represents the future. She's the one who's going to have the child. It's going to be a Yitzchak, who's going to be the future of Am Yisrael. They're saying, I want the power. I want the future. I want the leadership of the world. That's really what's going on beneath the surface. When the Jewish people are slaves to Paro in Egypt for 400 years or 210 years, and really, by the way, it starts back with Yitzchak's birth, right? So it really starts, the story with Avimelech is the same moment. It's right before Yitzchak is born. But there's a subduing of the koyach, of the power, of the future, of the leadership, of the spiritual leadership of the world. That's what's going on in the story of Avram and Avimelech, and that's what's going on in the story of the slavery of the Jewish people in Egypt. What's really going on is that the Egyptians want the gizais. They want all the talent of the Jewish people. The Jewish people were the ones who built these incredible engineering feats called the pyramids. Unbelievable. The Jewish people were the ones, and I heard this actually from my Rav Yaakov Haber. They were the ones who had the talent. They were the ones who had the know-how. We're brilliant today, Baruch Hashem. God gave us incredible intelligence in high tech, in Torah, of course, which is the real high tech. In all these areas, the nations of the world want to harness the power of the Jewish people for their purposes. The Jewish people are amazing at protecting themselves, iron domes. We want to take that and create an iron dome for ourselves, says the leader of the United States of America. They want to take the gizos, and that's what happens in Gullus. That's what happens in exile. The Jewish people, their power is taken away, is harnessed by the nation in which they find themselves. And there's an incredible danger. There's an incredible danger that we lose, that we get lost amongst the pigs. That we think of ourselves as a pig. But they know that we're different. They know that we have the sheep's wool that they're going to try to take. They're going to try to benefit from, and they're going to try to make all the money off of. They're going to try to make all the money off of us. They're going to enslave us and subdue us and take our power. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says he's the roya, he's the shepherd. And he says, I want my sheep. I want my sheep back. I want the Jewish people to live in Eretz Yisrael. I want them to use their power to serve me. I want them to learn Torah. I want them to be a light unto the nations, not just in high tech. I want them to be a light unto the nations in spiritual high tech. I want them to teach the world about balance, about serving Hashem not as the Muslims do out of complete fear of God's wrath, and not as the Christians do, thinking that everything is just love, but in balance. That's the spiritual high tech. And that's the Beis Hamikdash. That's what the temple is. It's a place where we come and we ask God for forgiveness. But it's also the place where there's the Lishchas Hagaz. It's the place where the Sanhedrin, the high court of the Jewish people, sits and guides us with strict justice. It's a place of love and forgiveness, and it's a place of justice. Am Yisrael has that spiritual high tech. And the result is, throughout our gullus, that we've been hijacked. And Paro wants Am Yisrael and wants to keep Am Yisrael and doesn't want to let them go. Doesn't want to let go of our power. Doesn't want to let go of our talent. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, their talent is for me. I want my sheep back. And I'm going to keep smacking you until you let him go. And I'm going to keep creating situations in the world that will remind my people where they belong and encourage them to return. Sometimes very difficult situations that cause us to be exiled from wherever we were so that we could return from exile to Eretz Yisrael. And sometimes Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us the opportunity, and the question is if we take it. But ultimately, we need to know that as long as we're in Gullus, our power is being hijacked. Yeah, they want the Jared Kushners and his father to be the people who are using their power for the government. Yeah, they want the Noach Deers. I mention that because he's my cousin. Zecharnu Levracha. He was a judge in the state of New York. Very powerful person. Passed away during Corona. They want our power. They want us to serve them. But really, the point of the Exodus, the point of Yetzias Mitzrayim is to take us out. So we should serve Hashem on this mountain. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu says to Paro from the first moment. They can't serve you. They're meant to serve Hashem. They're meant to bring korbanos, meant to show that God is their master, not you. And as much as you continue and you say and you reiterate that they're yours, Kadosh Baruch Hu is not interested in what you have to say, Paro. He wants his people back. He wants his people who are supposed to reflect his divine presence in the world. Hashem is not interested in letting you keep their power. Hashem wants that power of Am Yisrael to be used to reveal his power in the world. That's what's going on here. That's the hijacking and HaKadosh Baruch Hu forcing the nations of the world to let it go. Paras, Iran, wants to say that they're the ones who reflect the light of Hashem in the world. They want to destroy us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, sorry, we're going to give you some makas. We're going to give you some plagues. It might look like beepers. It might look like your president dying on an airplane. It might look like the destruction of Hamas. It might look like Syria falling, your allies falling. And how long will you adamantly say that you're the light of the world? How long will you adamantly say that? And even how long will the West try to hold on to being the Lord over the Jewish people? Even when things look good, even as things turn and look better and better for Am Yisrael. But how long will we be subservient to them, dependent on them, dependent on their power? That's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to take us out from subservience and our talents being used for them. And it's time for us to use our talents for him, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to bless you, ask you to bless me. Hashem should help us, that we should indeed understand what our personal talents are and what our national talents are. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us to use those talents, to take them out of subjugation, out of being subdued to the nations of the world. Hashem should help us to use our power for him, to serve him, to bring a light into the world. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.